The life of a typical college student unfolds like a glossy brochure. Picturesque campus, hopeful freshmen, and the ever-swirling breeze of youthful dreams and potential romance. Meanwhile, Choi Chang-wook, a second-year returnee, trudges through it all with the enthusiasm of a man reading his own obituary. He firmly believes he's miles away from that picture-perfect campus life, mostly because he belongs to the engineering school, a place where individuality dies and everyone dresses like they've been copy-pasted from a tech startup's worst-dressed list. The air smells like burnt coffee and existential crisis, with a generous helping of cigarette smoke. Friendships here are more myth than reality. Personalities clash, interests diverge, and group chats die faster than group projects begin. As for the curriculum, it's a battlefield of impossible equations and soul-crushing lectures. Throw in the fact that the gender ratio is an awkward sausage fest, and it's not hard to see why Chang-wook feels like a monk trapped in a computer lab. He comes from an all-boys middle and high school background, a streak of estrogen-free education that continues right into college. After returning from military service instead of a fresh start, he lands back into this monochrome world. At this point, he's pretty sure the only women he'll ever interact with are the ones printed on his shampoo bottles. At the lecture hall, for general education, also known as the only building where the presence of females has been confirmed, Chang-wook sits alone, wearing a permanent frown like it's part of his uniform. Just a few rows down, a flock of eager guys trip over their words, offering their undying loyalty to one particular girl, promising to handle every speck of her research so she doesn't lift a delicate academic finger. The girl in question is Haun Siola, aka the department's goddess. The first time Chang-wook got grouped with her on a project, he almost thought fate was finally cutting him some slack. That was 2 weeks ago. Alongside Siola was another female junior, Haun, and things looked promising. Siola, with a dazzling smile that could melt stress fractures, suggested Chang-wook be the group leader. His excitement lasted precisely 5 seconds. By week 2, reality hits harder than an overdue assignment. Siola effortlessly assigns herself the easiest task and proceeds to ghost the group with the professionalism of a seasoned magician. Every time there's work to do, she conjures up another excuse. Everything Siola conveniently skips doing ends up in the hands of her loyal legion of fanboys who currently buzz around her like interns around free pizza. Meanwhile, Chang-wook sits back, silently judging the absurdity of it all. 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks, and Siola hasn't so much as lifted a metaphorical finger. In stark contrast, Haun, the quieter member of their trio, not only does her part but wraps it up with neat formatting and footnotes that don't look like they were written during a caffeine-induced panic attack. When Chang-wook reviews Hayoon's report, he's genuinely impressed. It's well-researched, clear, and actually useful, a rare miracle in group projects. He tells her it's really good, and Hayoon gives him a timid thank you, barely audible, over the sound of Siola's entourage offering to carry her laptop, her bag, and possibly her will to study. Hayoon's shy and slightly nerdy demeanor makes the lack of attention from the others feel even more glaring. No one even spares her a glance. They're too busy orbiting planet Siola. Feeling like the last voice of reason in a world gone mad, Chang-wook finally reminds Siola to complete her share before their next class. She gives him a smile that promises nothing, and he braces himself for disappointment. Class proceeds, and as it wraps up, the lecturer announces that group leaders need to submit their presentation topics to the TAs before leaving. Chang-wook makes his way over and hands in the paperwork to a blonde TA. She looks up, blinks a few times, then removes her cap and glasses with a flare straight out of a K-drama reveal. Apparently, this is supposed to jog his memory. It works. Vaguely. He recognizes her as someone who once tried to strike up a conversation, mentioning they were in the same year. Her name comes back to him. Human. He blurts out that he didn't expect her to be a TA. She fires back that she's even more shocked to see him in a first-year class. He shrugs and admits it's because his grades took a nosedive. Just then, a group of junior guys pass by and greet Human with synchronized nods and voices loud enough to echo. She returns the greetings like a celebrity on a red carpet. Before their conversation can continue, another batch of students passes, offering more greetings. Chang-wook stares, trying to figure out when their school became a boot camp. Then it clicks. Of course people flock to Human. She's approachable, chill, and has that easygoing vibe. Yumin casually mentions that she noticed Chang-wook is grouped with Siola, adding with a smirk that he looks like someone about to step on a landmine. Chang-wook blinks, unsure what she means, but part of him senses it's probably not a compliment. It doesn't take long before enlightenment hits. Later that night, Siola drops a message in the group chat claiming she can't do her report because her computer suddenly decided to die, probably from overexposure to her avoidance. As expected, the Guy Brigade springs into action, falling over themselves to offer technical support, emotional support, and possibly moral support for her fictional laptop. By the next class, the reality of Yumin's words comes crashing down. Siola struts in, not only alive and well, but with her personal assignments perfectly printed and neatly stapled. Meanwhile, the guys, sleep-deprived and dark-eyed, have clearly sacrificed their night to finish the very report she bailed on. At the lecture center, the scene unfolds like a live reenactment of a tragicomedy. The guys swarm around Siola, cooing that she doesn't need to worry because they handled everything for her. Siola flashes them a dazzling smile like a benevolent queen receiving offerings. Chang-wook, standing nearby, frowns so hard it might become permanent. Haun, sharp-eyed despite her shy nature, notices his expression and stiffens. Chang-wook, finally done with the circus, calls out Siola. He reminds her, bluntly, that because she didn't do her part, the rest had to pick up the slack. And here she is, turning in her own homework while acting like she's too fragile to lift a pen. For the group. He points out that had she simply completed her report, they could have moved on to making the PowerPoint and actually started preparing their presentation. Instead, she's done nothing, and he declares that if this continues, he'll have to remove her name from the project. Siola looks like she's been struck by lightning. And then, classic plot twist, she starts crying, loudly, tearfully declaring that she wants to do her part, and if Chang-wook really wants to take her name off, then so be it. The room shifts instantly. The guys, now seeing Chang-wook as the villain of the story, start scolding him as if he just kicked a puppy on campus. Trying to salvage both his dignity and the project timeline, Chang-wook proposes a final deadline. The presentation is in 2 classes. If Siola doesn't finish her part by the weekend, then her name comes off for real. Surprisingly, Siola stops, crying immediately and chirps that she'll definitely do it, complete with sparkles in her eyes. Chang-wook, mildly alarmed by how fast the switch flipped, decides to let her off this time. By Saturday evening, just when the tension in Chang-wook's chest begins to ease slightly, a message flashes in the group chat. It's from Siola. She writes that her grandfather has passed away and that she won't be able to work on her portion of the report. The moment his eyes land on the message, something inside him twists. His jaw tightens and his fingers hover above the screen, tempted to type out every single thought boiling in his head. But he stops himself. He knows the script. Say anything, now, and he's the heartless one, the guy who doesn't respect grief. So instead, he slumps back onto his bed, the weight of helplessness pressing hard against his chest. Frustration sits with him like an uninvited guest, growing louder by the second. The room feels smaller, the air is heavier. And just when it seems like the night will end in angry silence, his phone buzzes again. Min-tae's name lights up the screen. An old friend from high school, the kind who believes life's disasters can be drowned in cold beer. The offer for a drink hangs on the screen. At first, Chang-wook thinks about saying no. There's still the project, still the deadline, still the mess. But then her name floats back into his head. That report, that excuse, that message. His chest burns a little, and before he even knows it, his thumbs are typing out a yes. The night air hits him like a sigh of relief as he steps out. He meets up with Min-tae, and the two begin wandering the streets, footsteps light and conversation. Easy? Somewhere along the way, Min-tae suggests another round of drinks. They head down a street lined with glowing signs until they come to a quieter place with dim lights and a warm atmosphere. It looks less like a bar and more like a secret escape. As they step inside, a lady greets them with a practiced smile. The bar is softly lit, filled with young women dressed neatly, many of them seated beside men who look far too relaxed for the problems they probably carry. Min-tae casually informs him it's a talking bar, one of those places where the drinks are optional, but the conversation is part of the package. The staff takes a glance at the two of them, college stress written all over their faces, and gently suggests that there are female students available, offering to send some over. Just then, a girl sitting at the far end of the bar catches their attention. Surrounded by older men, she carries herself with ease, a practiced charm in every gesture. The staff mentions that the girl is very popular, a favorite among the regulars. And then, the moment spins. The girl turns her head, and it's Siola. Everything pauses. Changwook's breath catches in his throat. Across the room, her eyes widen, and she sits frozen as if her world also just tilted sideways. There's no mistaking the look of someone caught completely off guard. And all at once, the message about her grandfather's passing feels like a slap from a ghost that never existed. The funeral, the mourning, the excuse. It all collapses under the bright, ironic lights of the bar. Siola approaches the table where Changwook and Minte are seated. Her usual smile is in place, but her eyes flicker with something uncertain as she sets the drinks down. She quickly notices that Changwook hasn't spoken a word since they sat down. He just keeps sipping from his glass, one after the other, like each drink is helping him swallow the anger he doesn't know what to do with. There's a tension around him that doesn't match the relaxed hum of the bar. Her gaze lingers, suspicious, and a little uneasy as she tries to read what's going on in his head. Meanwhile, Changwook is stuck in a whirlwind of thoughts. He doesn't touch the bar snacks, doesn't make conversation, doesn't even register half of what Mintai says. All he can think about is Siola. The gall of her sitting across the room hours after texting the group about her grandfather's funeral.
His mind spins with frustration, ideas, and possible confrontations. But in the middle of all that storm, he doesn't realize how many drinks he's downed until his phone buzzes. It's a call from home. Something about the familiar ringtone brings him back to earth. Changwook mumbles to Minte that he's going to step outside to take the call and clear his head a bit. He drags himself toward the restroom, hoping to splash some water on his face and gather his thoughts before doing something stupid. But the moment he steps inside, things take a sharp turn. A hand grabs the collar of his shirt and yanks him inside one of the toilet stalls. The door slams shut behind him, and before he can fully process what's happening, he finds himself staring at Siola in close quarters, her expression tense and frantic. She wastes no time. She demands to know if he's told anyone what he saw tonight. The irritation flickers back into Changwook's eyes. Her voice may be low, but the desperation in it only fuels his annoyance. He snaps back, pointing out the ridiculousness of it all. How the supposedly innocent, sweet-faced engineering student is actually moonlighting at a talking bar. Her image, all polished and perfect, now cracked wide open. Siola immediately tries to shift the mood. She backpedals, offering him a meal if he keeps quiet. A weak bribe. It only makes things worse. Changwook isn't playing along. He calls her out again, sharper this time. She counters by offering to finally do her part of the research. But that only makes him laugh dryly, shaking his head in disbelief. The presentation is in less than 2 days, and everyone else has already finished the part she left undone. Siola's voice softens. She starts explaining that she has her reasons, eyes wide, trying to appear vulnerable. But Changwook doesn't budge. His frustration boils over as he throws her excuses back in her face. She cried when she was cornered. She gave excuses when she was supposed to take responsibility. He was stupid enough to expect even the bare minimum, a simple apology. Meanwhile, the rest of their team is staying up all night, pulling her weight while still worrying about her. And here she is, hiding behind false tears, protecting her own image. Siola yells back, her voice suddenly sharp, claiming he's the worst for pressuring an underclassman just for missing a bit of work. But the fire in her tone dims quickly, replaced by fear. She pleads again, voice trembling now. If word about her job gets out, she says, she won't be able to show her face at school again. They eventually reach a quiet agreement inside the cramped restroom stall. Siola promises to handle her part of the group work properly from now on, while Changwook agrees to keep her secret tightly locked away. Come Monday, the group is gathered at a cozy cafe they frequent for their weekly meeting. The low hum of coffee machines and the scent of roasted beans fill the air. Changwook sits across from Siola and the other members, idly stirring his iced Americano while watching the scene unfold. The guys, as always, are quick to notice Siola's presence, and even quicker to praise her. They're genuinely surprised, almost as if they've spotted a unicorn, that she not only showed up but also submitted her part of the work on time. Chang-wook leans back in his chair, observing quietly. For once, Siola is early, engaged, and acting like a model student. He doesn't need a magic ball to figure out why. Her attendance and sudden diligence are less about group spirit and more about damage control. It's all written plainly on her face. She wants to protect her secret, and that means keeping him happy. He compliments her lightly, saying it's good she turned in her work, but then flips the script. His tone stays calm, but his words cut a little. There are plenty of mistakes in her report, and she needs to align her section with the others and make sure everything fits by tomorrow. The guys glance at each other, unease creeping in. They know Siola has a habit of vanishing when things get demanding. As expected, Siola plays her usual card, tilting her head and speaking with a pitiful voice, acting as if the deadline is just too much. She pouts slightly, adding a touch of drama, wondering aloud how she'll get everything done in such little time. But Chang-wook isn't buying it. He gives her a look, not harsh, but unmistakably pointed, like a silent nudge that says she knows why you need to do this. Siola picks up on the message immediately. Her demeanor shifts. She straightens up, clutches her arms for a bit of theatrical emphasis, and assures everyone she'll do it. The sudden switch in attitude makes the other members blink in confusion. One moment she's whining, the next she's determined. The performance is almost too quick. Chang-wook then turns his attention to Haeun's part of the project. He schemes through it and nods, clearly impressed. He says it looks perfect and casually adds that Haeun seems far more reliable than someone else. The indirect jab hangs in the air like a low buzz. Siola, catching every word, looks visibly tense. She knows it's not just a comparison. It's a warning. She clenches her hands a little under the table, likely thinking to herself that she just needs to push through, work harder, and keep her mouth shut if she wants her secret life to remain buried. The boys, still not in on the hidden tension, exchange glances. Something seems off. They can't help but wonder why Siola, normally so free-spirited, is suddenly listening to everything Chang-wook says like he's the group leader or worse, her parole officer. Unbeknownst to them all, someone else is listening too. A few tables behind them, Yumin sits with her drink, quietly observing the group. Her eyes flick toward Siola and then toward Chang-wook, the faintest hint of curiosity playing on her face. On campus, Chang-wook leans against a wall, a cigarette dangling from his fingers, his thoughts lingering on the difficulty of the class. The air is chilly, and the silence of the evening surrounds him. Just as he exhales a plume of smoke, he notices Yumin approaching. She remarks on the curious change in Siola's behavior, a topic that catches his attention more than he expects. Yumin's casual observation about the girls' rankings at school, a strange hierarchy defined not by looks or year, but by the status of their boyfriends, makes him pause. He listens intently as she explains Siola's position in this system, describing how older boys fawned over her from the moment she arrived, turning her into the goddess of the school. It seems that Siola has never really needed to pull her weight in group work. Her reputation and flirtations were enough to keep her ahead. Yumin's curiosity about Chang-wook's ability to make Siola so obedient only deepens as she talks. Chang-wook can't bring himself to mention the bar. Too much of a risk. But he offers a half-hearted explanation, suggesting it was his manliness that did the trick. Yumin bursts into laughter at his response, clearly not buying it. They move on to talk about Mincheol, who set up a fried chicken shop near the school. The conversation shifts from there, as Chang-wook grows increasingly aware of the strange, layered dynamics surrounding his classmates. After a brief exchange, Chang-wook says he needs to head out and work on his project. Before he leaves, Yumin remarks how nice it is to see an old, dependable classmate around. Someone who doesn't quite blend in with the crowd, but still feels familiar. Her words hang in the air as Chang-wook walks away, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his lips, though it's unclear whether it's for her or just his own fleeting thoughts. Later, in the classroom, Chang-wook finds himself reflecting on the stark contrast between him and Yumin. While he has been skimming by, Yumin has been diligently studying. It's a small but significant realization. He wonders if she's depending on him now, whether his role here is truly something more than just being another face in the crowd. His phone buzzes, pulling him out of his thoughts. It's late, and with that reminder, he decides to leave. Stepping outside, he shivers as the cold air hits him. The campus is eerily quiet, the kind of stillness that feels both unsettling and peaceful. As he walks down the empty street, he catches a glimpse of Yumin passing by. For a brief moment, the thought of teasing her crosses his mind, maybe even giving her a small scare. But that thought quickly fades as something more practical takes over. He watches her walking alone, and the unease creeps up. It feels dangerous, the silence of the night and the empty streets, especially for someone walking by themselves. Without thinking much further, he decides to follow her, his steps quiet against the cold pavement, unsure of what exactly he's hoping to find. Chang-wook notices a couple of students walking toward him, and realizing the awkwardness of the moment, he quickly excuses himself and heads home. Once there, he starts searching frantically for his wallet, turning over every surface and rummaging through drawers. He even goes back to school to check the lecture room, but his wallet is nowhere to be found. As he searches, a thought crosses his mind. Maybe Yumin has taken it. After all, she's the last person he saw before losing it. A few days pass, and Yumin never calls him. He figures maybe she didn't even drop the wallet where she was.
Then one day, he sees her walking by, and to his surprise, 3 guys come up to greet her. She firmly tells them to stop, making it clear she isn't their friend. As she looks around, she glances over in his direction, claiming she thinks she's spotted someone she knows. Chang-wook, who has been hiding behind the guys like a ninja in plain sight, feels a bit embarrassed. Even though he hasn't gotten his wallet back, the thought of meeting her still makes him uncomfortable, and so he stays hidden, hoping she doesn't notice him. However, Siola spots him, and she wastes no time rushing over to him, calling out his name. Chang-wook is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't notice her at first. She has to raise her voice and grab his hand to snap him out of it. At that moment, some students see them and wonder who Siola is talking to. Siola asks if he has checked his email about the assignment, to which Chang-wook replies he hasn't because he's been busy. Siola, a little sassy as always, reminds him that it's actually he who told her to hurry up and get it done. In return, Chang-wook teases her, pretending he's about to reveal one of her secrets. This makes Siola absolutely livid, and she slams her hand on the door, shouting that she clearly remembers paying the price, so he should just stop with the teasing. The students around them start whispering, watching the scene unfold. Great, now they're definitely the center of attention. After the little outburst, Siola hurries off, telling Chang-wook to check his email when he has the time. Chang-wook, noticing the growing chatter around him, quickly makes his exit, feeling like he needs to escape before things get any more awkward. However, he's later seen being bombarded by other members of the group, who ask him how he got so close to Siola, and even convinced her to do the assignment. Chang-wook feels a little uneasy under the sudden scrutiny, but tries to shrug it off, though it's clear he's not entirely comfortable with the attention. Guess they're not used to seeing him like this. Later, after class, Chang-wook is spotted by Yumin, who remarks that they haven't seen each other for a while. Chang-wook, feeling awkward and caught off guard, immediately decides it's time to take his leave. He claims he has work to do, hoping to make a quick exit. To his surprise, Yumin returns his wallet, and he pretends to be confused, asking how it ended up with her. Yumin is at Chang-wook's place, teasing him about how they're now partners in being exhibitionists. Chang-wook, clearly not enjoying the joke, snaps at her, telling her to stop doing that because it's too dangerous. Yumin, unfazed, asks if he knows why she's been acting that way on campus. She explains that it's hard to believe, but she went to an all-girls school, so she never really had a chance to talk to boys. When she came to the engineering school, she heard the rumors about how it was mostly filled with men. At first, it was unfamiliar, but she quickly found it fun. Talk about a dramatic change of scenery. Suddenly, Yumin realizes that they're going to be late for class, and they both rush out the door. No time for more deep conversation, just the chaos of student life. A few days later, Chang-wook walks through campus, reflecting on how things have returned to normal after some incidents. The team project he and Siola had clashed over ended successfully. Now, without any reason to interact, Siola has become just an existence out of his reach once again. He's back to his loner life, or so he thinks. But then, out of nowhere, he's smacked on the back. Turning around, he sees Yumin greeting him, and they continue their walk together. Changwook notices that her style seems to have changed, and he asks her if she's not feeling cold. Yumin, ever playful, jabs at him and asks if he's worried about her. He wants to say something, but before he can get the words out, she punches him to make him stop. Guess she's got a way of keeping him on his toes. Changwook notices the guys around them sneaking glances in their direction, and he starts to feel awkward. Realizing that walking with a pretty girl draws attention, he starts to think it's best to get away quickly. He comes up with an excuse about having a class and decides to run off. He feels it's probably better for both of them if they avoid any strange rumors that might start. Yeah, being seen with a girl like that could definitely lead to some wild speculation. To his surprise, Yumin starts running with him. She casually explains that the professor is always late, so it's fine for her to skip out of her own way. For a bit, Changwook tells her she doesn't need to follow him, but she doesn't seem to mind. She's already set on sticking with him. Classic Yumin, making her own rules. Meanwhile, the guys nearby start discussing whether Yumin and Changwook are actually that close. One of them can't help but wonder if they might be dating, but the others quickly dismiss the idea, saying it's not possible. Around the same time, Siola is spotted with the group. As usual, she catches their attention, and they all admire her from a distance. Seems like Siola is always the center of attention. Later, as the evening rolls in, Changwook finds himself in the lecture room, realizing that a lot of time has passed. He figures it's probably time to start packing up. Just as he's about to gather his things, he hears someone enter. He turns to find that it's Siola. She claims she's here to work on her assignment, casually telling him to mind his own business. Yet, instead of sitting at another seat, she proceeds to sit right beside him. Changwook finds it a bit weird, especially given how she always acts like she's in charge of everything around her. Well, this is going to be an interesting evening. Changwook and Siola are both seen working on their computers in the lecture room. Changwook, however, seems to be struggling to concentrate. He starts wondering if it's better for him to just leave. He gets up from his seat, preparing to walk out, but Siola stops him, handing him a canned drink. She asks if they can talk for a moment. Siola casually mentions that he seems to be doing well these days, having fun with a woman and all. Changwook wonders if she's talking about Yumin. She then says that she's been worried every day, fearing he might tell someone about her. Changwook, slightly irritated, reminds her that he's already promised to keep her secret. He asks her to wait a moment as he types something on his phone. Siola appears visibly nervous, which doesn't go unnoticed by him. He reassures her, telling her that he's not going to tell anyone, so she doesn't have to worry. Siola admits that it's exactly that. Every little thing he does makes her nervous. Changwook, trying to lighten the situation, asks her if she can't just quit the job, considering he doesn't have any proof anyway. Siola responds that she'll quit after next month. He then asks her why she keeps bothering him, to which she replies that she doesn't trust him. Changwook, now growing annoyed, retorts that maybe he should just meet her expectations and write it on a poster. He's about to leave the lecture room, fed up with the situation. But then, he hears Siola say that she'll do it one more time, and properly this time. It's like a never-ending loop, and Changwook wonders if he'll ever get a break from all this drama. Haun walks into the lecture room and approaches Changwook, seeking his advice on how to be more social and learn from him. She admits that it's a difficult challenge for her, and she's feeling a bit lost. She observes that Changwook seems to get along with everyone and is quite popular, which surprises him since he doesn't see himself that way. But Haun insists, mentioning that she's shy and introverted, and that even though there aren't many girls in the engineering school, she thought they would form a bond. Unfortunately, she finds that the girls mostly keep to themselves, playing solo. She goes on to talk about how pretty girls like Siola seem to have an easy time hanging out with boys, even if they don't interact much with other girls. But when it comes to Changwook, she notices something different. Siola, despite her usual aloofness, becomes more candid and comfortable around him, and the boys seem to talk about Changwook a lot. Haun even notices how Changwook and Yumin appear to have a close friendship. Haun expresses her desire to get along with people like Chang-wook or Siola, wishing she could be more like them. However, Chang-wook, unable to stop his internal laughter, realizes that Haun has a completely wrong impression of him as a popular, outgoing person. He tries to explain that he's not really the best person to give advice on this matter, but Haun insists that he is always kind, even to someone like her, to which Chang-wook reassures her that there's nothing wrong with her. He adds that women can look different depending on how they style themselves, and that Haun is hiding her own beauty. She's pretty enough, he tells her, even though she doesn't realize it. Grateful for his words, Haun thanks him for his help with the team project and prepares to leave. But just as she's about to walk out, she suddenly returns to the room, only to find Siola and Chang-wook together. Talk about a plot twist. Siola nearly dies from the ridiculous situation she finds herself in. Just as she's about to breathe a sigh of relief, she hears footsteps approaching the door. In an instant, Haun walks in, catching both of them off guard. Siola and Chang-wook freeze, stunned to be caught. Haun, seemingly surprised to see Siola in the room, claims she forgot something. Her eyes flicker between them, clearly confused. Before she can finish her sentence, Siola quickly denies any suspicions, insisting she's just here to work on her assignments. Chang-wook's heart skips a beat. He silently prays that Haun won't notice Siola's lack of clothes, because if she does, well, he'd have some serious explaining to do. He lets out a relieved sigh when he sees that Siola is dressed. He immediately shoots Haun a sharp response, trying to hide his nervousness. Haun, still looking bewildered, tells Siola that she didn't notice her when she first entered. Siola, at first unsure of how to respond, quickly covers her tracks, casually mentioning that she was just hiding. She then smartly adds that she didn't want to be seen with someone like him at this hour. It could lead to some unwanted rumors. She playfully hints at how embarrassing it would be if anyone got the wrong idea. Chang-wook, still shaking from the close call, internally commends Siola for her quick thinking, but deep down, he can't ignore the nagging thought. Did she really feel that way about him? He jokes to himself that if it's true, it would sting, but he'll live. As his mind races, he's even more puzzled when Haun, of all people, defends him. Haun grows visibly upset as she faces Siola, her voice sharp and filled with emotion. She finds the words Siola used, someone like him, and embarrassing, to be far too cruel. The weight of those phrases lingers in the air like a slap, and Haun doesn't bother to hide how hurtful she finds them. Siola freezes in place, caught completely off guard. She never expects Haun to snap at her like that, and for a moment, she doesn't even know how to respond. Frustration bubbles up as her thoughts scramble for an exit, and she finally mutters that she has things to do. Without waiting for a response, she waves them off and hurries out of the room, the sound of her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Haun stands there in shock, her brows furrowed in confusion. She calls after Siola, stepping toward the door, but by the time she looks out, Siola has already disappeared. Still puzzled, she turns toward Chang-wook, only to let out a loud, startled scream as her hand flies up to cover her eyes. Chang-wook, deep in his thoughts about how cleverly Siola had deflected suspicion just moments earlier, is completely caught off guard. He turns slowly toward Haun, unsure why she's reacting so dramatically, until he glances down and finally realizes the tragic state he's in. In the chaos of the moment, he has forgotten something very basic, like pants. Panic floods his system as he turns around in a blur and fumbles to cover himself, his voice rushed and apologetic as he tries to explain the absurd situation. His dignity makes a quick dash for the window as he mentally accepts defeat. Inside, he already starts mourning the loss of his reputation. The next morning, Siola strolls across campus, her expression calm but her thoughts anything but. Students greet her as she passes, especially the boys who seem to find 1,000 reasons to notice her today. She returns the greetings with a light nod, but her mind wanders back to the night before. The memory of Haun's outburst still lingers. The way she stood up for Chang-wook felt intense. Siola begins to wonder if Haun harbors feelings for him, and the thought unsettles her more than she expects. Still, she tells herself that Chang-wook doesn't seem like the type to get involved in anything meaningful. To her, he's just a returning student with a questionable sense of timing, and possibly a permanent allergy to shirts. Chang-wook lets out a heavy sigh as he walks across campus, the memory of last night playing on a loop in his mind. He still can't shake the image of Haun walking in on him without pants, an experience now permanently etched into the hall of his most embarrassing moments. Deep down, he's grateful that she seemed to believe Siola's excuse and didn't ask too many questions. But the more he thinks about it, the more convinced he becomes that she probably sees him as a textbook campus pervert now. The thought makes him groan out loud without realizing, startling a couple of students nearby who glance at him like he's lost in a tragic drama. And honestly, he kind of is. Just as he's dragging himself toward class, he hears someone call his name. He flinches slightly, on edge, only to turn and see Siola approaching. His shoulders relax a bit as he lets out a small sigh of relief, quietly muttering under his breath like he's just dodged a bullet. Siola, however, narrows her eyes at his odd expression. She can't tell if he's relieved, nervous, or just malfunctioning. She keeps her voice casual as she asks if nothing happened yesterday, her way of reminding him, with the subtlety of a brick, to keep his mouth shut about her being in his room. Chang-wook nods slowly, offering a vague, "I guess," that sounds more like he's trying to convince himself than anyone else. As they walk side by side for a few steps, something clicks in his memory, and he stops abruptly. He turns back to her, looking like he just remembered he left the stove on, and tells her he has something for her. Siola raises an eyebrow, suddenly curious, and asks if he's sure it's meant for her. With zero dramatic buildup and a complete lack of self-preservation, Chang-wook pulls out her bra and singlet from his bag like he's showing off a new phone case. Siola stares in frozen horror, the color draining from her face. At that exact moment, Haun, who happens to be nearby, turns and sees the tragic performance unfolding live. Her eyes widen, her mouth drops open, and she marches straight toward him, smacking his back like she's trying to knock some sense into it. Her voice is sharp as she scolds him, completely mortified that he would whip out someone's undergarments in broad daylight like it's a group project. People around them start to take notice, especially a few engineering department students and former teammates of Chang-wook's, who begin whispering as they take in the scene. Their former project teammates stand nearby, watching Chang-wook and Siola interact with puzzled expressions. The closeness between the two makes little sense to them. Back during their group assignment, they had always been the ones going easy on Siola, helping her whenever she claimed to be sick or came up with excuses not to do her part. They had picked up the slack without complaint and never expected anything in return. One of them reminds the others that Chang-wook, Siola, and he were in the same team for that assignment. But another teammate frowns, pointing out that Chang-wook used to be the harshest on Siola. He had told her off the most. That's what makes it so strange. Why would she get close to someone like that? Off to the side, Min-soo, who wasn't even part of the original team, jumps into the conversation. He recalls how kind everyone had been to Siola during the project. They helped her a lot, he says, but the others quickly shut him down, reminding him he wasn't actually in the group, so his opinion doesn't count. As they speak, the group's attention shifts once more. Yumin appears nearby, her presence pulling eyes toward her. She looks even prettier than usual, so much so that one of the guys quietly mutters that she's the only girl he ever dreams about. But even his admiration doesn't distract them from returning to the usual topic, complaining about Chang-wook. They mock him, wondering why every beautiful girl in engineering seems to be drawn to him. Yumin, with her usual sharp expression, walks straight toward Chang-wook. Her steps are fast, her gaze fixed. She asks why he ignored her message the day before, clearly annoyed. But Chang-wook, confused, acts like he never even saw the message. The boys nearby exchange glances, more confused and irritated. Just moments ago, Siola had walked off quietly. Now Yumin is here, clearly angry but still giving Chang-wook direct attention. Yumin's tone softens slightly as she asks how he managed to make Siola behave so differently around him. She seems cuter with him, she notes. Chang-wook doesn't know what to say. He thinks about it for a second. Maybe it's all the weird, awkward situations they've been in together. Maybe those moments changed something. Still, he isn't sure. He wonders if bizarre circumstances really lead to real feelings. Days pass. Siola doesn't say anything to him. No messages, no small talk. Her silence starts to bother him. 1. Morning while heading across campus, he overhears two students chatting. One asks the other if he knows someone named Arim from the school community page. The name sounds unfamiliar to Chang-wook, but something makes him stop and listen. The boy explains that Arim is a secret account that posts nude pictures every night. His friend is stunned, asking if the photos are actually of her body. The boy confirms, saying the woman has a stunning figure. He adds that the photos often seem to be taken around the engineering department, which makes them think the account owner might be one of their classmates. Hearing this, Chang-wook pulls out his phone and searches for the account. The latest photo is still up. As he stares at it, a strange feeling creeps up his spine. He shakes his head quickly. There's no way someone like that is from his department. Then a voice calls from behind. It's Yumin. And in that moment, Chang-wook's certainty begins to waver. As Yumin walks through the hallway, her pace slows when she hears her name called out. It's Chang-wook, which catches her off guard. He rarely approaches her first. With a curious look, she asks, "What's going on?" wondering what's made him take the initiative for once. Chang-wook asks if she has some time to talk. Without hesitation, Yumin tells him to wait at the smoking booth, assuring him she'll be right there. She walks off with a surprising spring in her step, a hint of excitement trailing behind her. Watching her go, Chang-wook finds himself wondering what exactly could make her that cheerful. As he waits by the booth, a fellow engineering student passes by and greets him casually. Chang-wook's eyes widened in surprise. It's the first time anyone has randomly greeted him like that. He gives a nod back, still processing the sudden social warmth. A short while later, Yumin returns. Chang-wook asks if she's done with her work, but she brushes off the question with a light smile. For graduate students, she says, there's no such thing as done. Still, she's already cleared time for him, so she gets straight to the point and asks why he wanted to see her. Chang-wook hesitates for a second, then pulls out his phone and shows her the infamous Arim account. He asks cautiously if she's the person behind it. Yumin leans in and glances at the screen, only to see the post is already deleted. Her expression shifts slightly as she taps around, eventually realizing the account is tied to their university's online community. She looks up, puzzled, and asks what's so strange about it. That's when Chang-wook explains. He tells her about the rumor surrounding the Arim account, the one known for uploading suggestive photos every night. As he describes it, Yumin's eyes widen in disbelief, and an involuntary exclamation escapes her. Then the mood shifts. She turns to him, her expression sharp and defensive. Her voice rises as she demands to know why he'd even ask her if she was the one behind an account like that. Her tone accuses him outright, suggesting that he must think she's the type to post such photos. An exhibitionist, maybe? But Chang-wook quickly waves it off, rushing to explain that he didn't mean it like that. He tries to calm the tension, telling her that he only brought it up because he's worried. Whoever the person is, posting images like that online is dangerous. He hadn't meant to accuse her, only to express concern. Yumin chuckles, feigning innocence, and teases him further, asking how it's dangerous. That gives Chang-wook a chance to explain. He recounts how some guys in their department had been talking about the Arim account, and how one even made a disturbing comment about what they'd do if they caught her. The implication had been ugly. He makes it clear that flaunting one's body, whether in person or through photos, doesn't automatically mean consent. And even someone like Yumin, who enjoys pushing boundaries, surely has her own lines that shouldn't be crossed. The word slips out as he tries to make his point, and Yumin responds with a punch to his arm, light but firm. Her smirk returns as she tells him slyly that maybe it'd be safer if he were with her instead of leaving her to the others. Their moment is cut short when they notice people nearby, voices and footsteps echoing. Yumin doesn't miss a beat. She suggests they relocate and leads him to one of the graduate labs. As the door clicks behind them, Chang-wook's nerves spike. He looks around, his voice low but urgent as he questions her sanity. If they get caught by another student, it would be bad enough. A professor? Career ending. But Yumin waves off, his concern saying her professor isn't on campus today, so there's nothing to worry about. Chang-wook narrows his eyes, skeptical. He asks if this whole thing is just her way of silencing him, a tactic to make him drop the topic. But Yu-min only grabs his hand with a mischievous glint in her eyes and says she's just excited. His gaze shifts to the corner of the room where a mattress lies on the floor. It catches him off guard. Disbelief colors his face as he points at it, asking what that's even doing there. Yu-min avoids his stare, her voice nonchalant as she says he'll find out once they start whatever it is they came in for. Yu-min often thinks back to a few years ago, a time when everything felt new and confusing. She remembers how nervous she was when she first thought about getting close to Chang-wook in a way she hadn't with anyone else. Her heart beat too fast, her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and her mind kept racing with all sorts of worries. But in the middle of all that mess, Chang-wook stayed calm. He gave her the kind of quiet reassurance that didn't need many words. He made her feel like it was okay to be scared, and even more okay to take things slow. Classic Chang-wook, like a walking, talking comfort blanket. Back in her university days, though, things were not so simple. Her very first boyfriend turned out to be a bad idea wrapped in good looks. He wasn't kind, and he didn't make her feel safe. Because of that, Yu-min never allowed herself to get close to him. It wasn't just about the boyfriend, though. At the time, she blamed herself. She thought maybe she just liked weird things. Weird how? She wasn't even sure. She even started wondering if the real problem was that she didn't actually feel anything for the guy at all. Maybe her heart had checked out before things even started. And so, without ever being hurt by a man or sharing anything intimate, with one, she still ended up trying out those odd private habits on her own. Just her and her imagination. Who needs a partner when you've got curiosity and a locked door? Now, fast forward to the present. Here she is, with Chang-wook again. They've just done their usual weird thing, which by now isn't that weird anymore. It's more like a routine with occasional giggles and tangled clothes. After they finish and start getting dressed, there's that familiar quiet between them. Not awkward, just soft and comfortable, like two people tying their shoelaces before heading out. As they get ready to leave, Chang-wook suddenly brings up a video he saw. His tone gets a bit serious, like a parent warning a child not to touch the stove. He starts warning her not to talk about the video, but Yu-min, without even blinking, cuts him off. She waves off the idea completely, letting him know it wasn't even her in the first place. It was Arim, that other girl. Chang-wook feels completely shocked when he realizes that Yu-min is not actually Arim. He has been thinking all along that she was the girl in the video, and now that she says otherwise, his mind starts spinning. He begins to wonder who the girl could really be. Yu-min, on the other hand, thinks the mystery girl has a body shape similar to some of the girls in their department. She casually suggests that it might be Seo-hyun or Siola pretending to be Arim. She doesn't sound too sure, but the idea seems possible. Then, she advises Chang-wook that if the real Arim ever shows up again in the community, he should just give her a quiet warning to stop whatever she's doing. She remembers how seriously Chang-wook spoke about the situation before, especially the part where he said it could be a big problem if someone found out about Arim's private interests and tried to use it against her. Still, Yu-min is too curious to let it go. She begs Chang-wook to screenshot the girl's picture from the video. She says she just wants to see how attractive the body really is, because the whole situation has made her imagination run wild. After that, she tells Chang-wook she has other things to take care of and decides to leave. They go their separate ways for the day. A few days later, Chang-wook receives an email reminding him that his exam is coming up. He sighs as he thinks about how he doesn't have anyone to exchange information with. Since he is an outsider, he knows that once again he'll be studying all by himself, just like usual. While he's still sitting there in his thoughts, someone suddenly calls out his name. He turns around and sees a guy he doesn't recognize. The guy is also a student and mentions that they were once in the same group, but Chang-wook, honestly, has no memory of his face. It's awkward, but the student doesn't seem to care. He introduces the class he's in now and acts like they've been good friends all along. Chang-wook starts to feel a bit strange about it. He wonders why students he barely knows are being so friendly with him all of a sudden. It feels too familiar, almost like they know something he doesn't. He hopes it's nothing bad, but a small part of him stays alert, just in case. Just like that, the male student starts following Chang-wook to his class and even decides to sit next to him. At first, when Siola spots Chang-wook, she considers going over to greet him, but when she sees the male student sticking to him like glue, She hesitates and decides to hold back. As the day goes on, the male student starts to get Chang-wook to pay for his lunch and dinner, which takes him by surprise. Chang-wook wonders if it's okay to pay for his underclassman's food. It feels a little off, but the student doesn't seem to care. Later, the male student asks if Chang-wook wants to study together for the exam, but Chang-wook, not interested in spending any more time with him, politely declines. That's when the male student drops a bombshell. He admits that he initially thought Chang-wook was the type to seduce female students every day since he's always alone.
The student came to meet him thinking he might get caught up in some drama, but after seeing how things really were, he realized he was completely wrong. With a chuckle, the male student says he'll leave now, but makes sure to let Chang-wook know that he'll definitely be back whenever he's looking for something free. Chang-wook doesn't know what to make of that, but he's glad when the student walks away. Once the male student leaves, Chang-wook decides not to dwell on it. He'd rather focus on finding a quiet spot to study. When he arrives at a peaceful place, he spots an empty seat next to a young lady. At first, he doesn't bother checking who's sitting next to him. But later, as he looks up, his eyes widen in surprise. It's Siola. What catches his attention first is her hair, the way she styled it. It makes her look even more beautiful than usual. Siola, on her end, is also happy to see him, though she doesn't let it show. She casually asks why he came to this place alone and wonders what happened to the male student who was hanging around him earlier in the day. Chang-wook can instantly tell from Siola's tone that her question is driven by jealousy. He decides to confront her about it. Siola tries to play it cool, pretending she's not jealous at all. Instead of responding to his comment, she just asks him to stop using formal language with her, hinting that they're not strangers anymore. Not long after, Siola stands up. Chang-wook thinks she's about to leave, but then she casually mentions she's just going to the restroom. While she's gone, Chang-wook's phone buzzes. It's another message from Arim, and this time, it includes some pictures. He stares at the images, trying to figure out who it could be. Then, a thought crosses his mind. He remembers that it was just when Siola went to the restroom that he received the message. Could it be that Arim is actually Siola? He begins to wonder if the timing is more than just a coincidence. Immediately, Chang-wook jumps up from his seat and rushes to the men's restroom, convinced that Siola must be hiding there, the one who sent those pictures. But when he enters, he's taken aback. The restroom looks completely different from what he saw in the pictures, and there's no sign of Siola. Instead, he only meets a man who came in to use the restroom. The layout isn't even close to matching what was in the photo, and that throws Chang-wook off even more. Feeling confused and a little frustrated, Chang-wook decides to sit in the restroom for a moment, trying to think things through. He starts wondering what he should do next, eventually coming up with an idea. He decides to leave a comment for Siola, warning her to stop whatever it is she's doing. He types up a message, lying that he knows her true identity, hoping it'll make her back off. But as soon as he posts it, things take an unexpected turn. Some people in the comments section attack him, accusing him of just trying to grab Arim's attention. That wasn't his intention at all, but the backlash makes him rethink his approach. After a few more comments, he decides to stop commenting for now. He hopes the idea of him knowing who the girl really is will make whoever Arim is think twice and get scared. Still feeling unsettled, Chang-wook tries to calm down and think of what to do next. He glances back at the pictures Arim sent him. The background in them looks oddly familiar, like a place he's been to before. He tries to remember, and after a moment, it clicks. The room Arim was using looks like the computer lab on the 5th floor of the Science and Engineering building. He often goes there because not many people use it, and the building is just next to the library. With his heart racing, Chang-wook figures that if he runs, he might still be able to catch up to her. Without wasting another second, he hurries out of the restroom, determined to get to the building as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Siola returns to the library, carrying 2 coffees, the kind of gesture that's supposed to be a sweet surprise. But when she reaches their usual spot, she's greeted by nothing but an empty chair. There's no sign of Chang-wook anywhere, and for a moment, she stands there, a little dumbfounded, trying to piece together where he could have gone. Annoyed, she taps her foot, staring at the spot where he should have been. Maybe he went to get something, maybe he's lost, maybe he just vanished into thin air. Either way, she's not happy. She decides to kill some time, fixing herself up in a bid to look even more stunning, just in case he miraculously comes back. She waits, glances around, checks her phone, and still no Chongwook. The frustration builds, like waiting for a bus that doesn't show up. Meanwhile, Chongwook is deep in the corridors, determined to figure out where Arim might be. He's about to check the rooms when suddenly, a woman sprints past him, looking remarkably like Haun. She's running so fast, her clothes are practically flying out of her arms like a fashion disaster in motion. She's out the door without a care in the world, leaving Chongwook to watch her in a mix of surprise and confusion. At first, he thinks about chasing her down, but then, like a cartoon character, his leg protests. It's been way too long since he last ran, and it hurts like he's just tried to sprint a marathon. Great timing, right? His chance to figure out what's going on vanishes as quickly as Haun. Just when it seems like things can't get any worse, luck decides to play nice. As Haun bolts off, her glasses fall, and she doesn't even notice. Chongwook, like a man on a mission, swiftly picks them up. He takes a close look, almost studying them with the kind of focus usually reserved for rare treasures. And then, like a detective in a bad movie, he tries to recall any electrical engineering students who might wear glasses like those. The name Haun pops up, but he can't help but doubt it. Haun, shy as a mouse. Chongwook starts feeling the weight of exhaustion creeping in, the dizziness sneaking up on him like a bad headache. Deciding he's had enough for the day, he heads toward home, but then it hits him. His bag is still at the library. Of course, right? So he takes a detour, hoping to grab it and just get on with the day. When he arrives, he notices something strange. A coffee cup sitting there, untouched. Siola's coffee, the one she bought for him. But she's nowhere to be found. As if things couldn't get worse, he sees a little note taped to the edge of the cup. It's her message. Apparently, she's already gone home, disappointed, leaving him with nothing but an empty coffee cup and a heavy heart. The next day, as Chongwook walks into school, he can't help but think about Haun. The glasses were one thing, but he knows judging her based on just that wouldn't get him anywhere. Haun's style tends to be loose-fitting, making it impossible to figure out anything about her body shape. But still, that mysterious connection lingers. He's about to get lost in the thought when reality smacks him across the face. Exams. The looming threat of tests and deadlines reminds him that his brain is better off focused on that than worrying about who might be behind those glasses or which body shape fits Arim. He enters the building, trying to shake off his thoughts, when he notices a group of students gathered around a lady. Moving closer, he spots a familiar face among the crowd. It's Haun, and she's looking at him, as if sensing his approach. As soon as she sees him, she steps away from the group and comes right over. She bows her head before him, and Chongwook, a little flustered, tries his best to mask his surprise. But the more he looks at her, the more things don't add up. She's not wearing glasses today, and her outfit, tight clothes that hug her shape, makes her look completely different. She looks, well, stunning. Chongwook can't help but wonder if this is really the same Haun he's known. Is she really that beautiful? He's lost in thought, still piecing together the puzzle of who she might really be. And as he stands there, thinking about it all, Haun just quietly watches him. Maybe she knows he's having a moment of realization, or maybe she's just curious about his reaction. Chongwook hesitates for a moment, wondering if he should just flat out ask Haun if she's the mysterious Arim. But then, he notices the crowd still lingering around them, and the last thing he wants is to have this conversation in front of a bunch of spectators. So, with a casual attempt to seem calm, he suggests they move somewhere quieter, like the department room. Haun, without hesitation, agrees and follows him. The male students nearby can't help but watch, their eyes glued to the scene unfolding before them. They're baffled at how Haun follows Chongwook so effortlessly, and they're definitely noticing the difference today, her tight-fitting clothes revealing more of her body than they've ever seen before. She's stunning, and the guys start whispering amongst themselves. One of them even wonders out loud if she's Chongwook's girlfriend, but the others aren't so sure. They can't wrap their heads around it, especially with Hayoon's mysterious aura. When they finally reach the department room, Changwook is caught off guard by how empty it is. It's eerily quiet, no sign of anyone else. The room seems untouched, almost as if the building itself was in on the secret. Hayoon breaks the silence, asking him what it is that he wanted to talk about. That's when it hits him. He's not sure how to ask her. What if she isn't Arim? What if this whole thing falls apart in his face? He feels a wave of regret wash over him, berating himself for not planning this better. His mind races with 1,000 possible scenarios, none of which seem to make sense. But just as quickly, he decides to stop second-guessing himself. He takes a deep breath and goes for it. He asks her directly, without any preamble, if she's the one behind the Arim profile online. As soon as the question leaves his lips, Changwook's heart starts pounding in his chest. It's too late to take it back now, so he steels himself for her answer, whatever it may be. For a brief moment, Hayoon goes blank, caught off guard. She stammers, clearly surprised that she's been caught so quickly. But there's no point in denying it. With a deep sigh, Hayoon confesses that she is indeed Arim, the one who had been commenting online. And then, in a move that completely catches Changwook off guard, she kneels down before him. Her voice is laced with guilt as she apologizes, acknowledging that she had disrespected him online. Her sincerity hits him like a ton of bricks. Hayoon tells him that she's ready to accept any punishment he decides to give her for what she's done. Changwook feels the weight of the situation settle over him. He looks at Hayoon, still kneeling before him, and he realizes that he hasn't meant to punish her. He just needed to understand who she really was. His voice softens as he explains that his comment came from a place of concern. He's heard rumors, dangerous ones, people saying they want to have something with her. Once they figure out who she is, the thought alone troubles him, which is why he commented the way he did. But as soon as he finishes, he notices Hayoon turn away from him, her posture stiff with discomfort. Her shyness is palpable, and it's clear she's unable to face him. He wonders if it's the guilt of her actions online. She hadn't realized that the person she disrespected was him. The one she'd been indirectly insulting was the very guy she had a crush on. Changwook, seeing her pull away, mistakes it for anger. He reaches for her, wanting to console her. But before he can figure out what's going on, Hayoon's balance falters. She starts to fall, and instinctively, he pulls her back, preventing her from crashing to the ground. In the sudden motion, she ends up lying against him, her face inches from his. Hayoon is stunned, not just by the fall but by how quickly Changwook acted to save her. The close contact catches her off guard, and she feels her heart race. It's a moment of unexpected tenderness that neither of them had anticipated. As Hayoon tries to gather herself and get back on her feet, the sound of a knock breaks the silence. Changwook freezes, immediately recognizing the voice. Siola. A mixture of surprise and confusion hits him as he calls out, confirming if it's really her. Siola answers, standing outside the room. She explains why she's here. She came to apologize. The rift between them, she admits, is her fault, and she wants to make it right. Her unexpected vulnerability catches Changwook off guard. He never expected Siola to admit her fault so openly. For a moment, he's at a loss for how to respond. Meanwhile, Hayoon, still lying against him, shifts uncomfortably. She's aware of the tension in the room and can't help but feel a pang of jealousy. She asks Changwook if he's planning to go out with Siola. He quickly denies it, but deep down, Hayoon can't shake the feeling that even though she's right here, Changwook's mind is still on Siola. It makes her feel uneasy. Outside, Siola waits for a response, but the silence inside the room only leaves her wondering what's going on. Why hasn't he answered yet? Changwook is so absorbed in his thoughts and the moment with Hayoon that he loses track of Siola standing just outside the room. His mind is tangled with the confusion of everything, his growing connection with Hayoon, the apology Siola offered, and the emotional weight of it all. It's only when he hears Siola call his name that he's jolted back to reality. The realization hits him hard and he quickly tells Siola to go on without him for now. He assures her they'll talk later, hoping that his words sound convincing enough. However, as soon as he speaks, he notices a subtle shift in Siola's posture. The disappointment in her expression is palpable even though she doesn't say anything. As Changwook and Haun step out of the department room, their attempt to move discreetly toward their next class is anything but smooth. They do their best to avoid the groups of students milling about, but the moment they think they've successfully dodged the crowds, they hear familiar voices. A group of male students stands nearby, discussing Arim's most recent uploaded pictures. Their words are clear, and it's impossible to ignore the topic. Changwook and Haun exchange uncomfortable glances. The situation feels almost suffocating. With awkwardness thick in the air, they both avoid looking directly at the students, instead keeping their eyes glued to the floor as they hasten their steps, hoping to blend into the crowd and escape unnoticed. The conversation around them fades as they move further away, but the weight of the discussion lingers, making them feel exposed. As they continue walking, Changwook's unease grows. It dawns on him that almost everyone in their department now knows about Arim, and with her identity tied to him, it's only a matter of time before the pressure becomes unbearable. He can't hold it in any longer, and the question he's been pushing aside finally escapes his lips. He asks Haun how she ended up uploading those pictures. Haun falters for a moment. She hadn't expected the question, and as she tries to think of an answer, she realizes she doesn't really have one. She hadn't considered the consequences of her actions when she posted the pictures. To her, it had seemed like a harmless way to express herself without considering how it might affect others, especially Changwook. She looks up at him, unsure how to explain. Her thoughts are jumbled, but she eventually admits that she didn't think there was any particular reason behind what she did. Changwook notices the discomfort in Haun as she tries to explain her actions. She hesitates but eventually admits that the reason behind posting those pictures was a simple yet painful truth: she wanted attention. It hadn't been easy for her to get noticed before, so she thought that putting herself out there online would attract the kind of attention she desperately craved. As she confesses, a strange sense of relief washes over her, yet a new weight settles in. Listening to her, Changwook can't help but think that with her beauty already becoming more apparent, she would surely receive attention on her own from now on. He tells her that her looks alone would draw people's gazes, something he's certain of. However, Haun seems to doubt his words, feeling more embarrassed than anything else. The online attention she once found thrilling now feels like a regret. Changwook is taken aback by her reaction, realizing she can't fully own the choices she made, and wonders why someone as timid as her would resort to such attention-seeking behavior. It's a paradox that doesn't quite make sense to him. But as Haun continues to talk, she surprises him once more. Despite the embarrassment she now feels, she reveals that she is still grateful for what she did online because it led her to have her first experience with him, the person she genuinely respects. Changwook feels a knot form in his stomach, unsure of what to make of this new layer of complexity in their interactions. Why would she respect him so much? Was this entire situation just about respect, or was there something deeper he hadn't grasped yet? Before he can dwell too much on it, the male students they had passed earlier finally realize it's Haun walking alongside him. Their eyes widen and their chatter grows louder as they start to notice her newfound beauty, which they hadn't fully registered before. Their attention shifts from Changwook to Haun with startling intensity. The students start pushing their way toward her, practically shoving Changwook aside in their eagerness to get closer to her. Seeing the situation getting out of hand, Changwook realizes he's no longer needed. He quickly steps back, maneuvering his way through the growing crowd of students. The day at school becomes a whirlwind for Haun as the male students continue to hover around her, trying to get her to remember their faces. They eagerly reminisce about past encounters, but Haun is caught off guard. She's overwhelmed by the sudden surge of attention, unsure of how to respond, her mind still processing what happened earlier with Changwook. She watches helplessly as Changwook walks away, feeling even more isolated than before. As the day progresses, the attention from the guys doesn't die down. In fact, it only grows stronger. Everywhere Haun turns, there are eyes on her, and she struggles to concentrate on her classes. The constant gaze of her peers makes her uncomfortable, especially since she's not used to being in the spotlight. Even the other girls in her department, who used to be content staying under the radar, begin whispering behind her back, envious of the attention she's getting. Their gossip stings, making Haun feel even more out of place. She can't help but notice how Siola walks into class, and for the first time, she begins to understand what it feels like to be constantly observed. In the past, Haun had assumed Siola had it easy, but now she sees that the attention Siola receives isn't always welcomed either. It's not as glamorous as Haun once thought, and she starts to question whether being the center of attention is as desirable as she once believed. When Siola approaches her, Haun is initially taken aback. Siola asks if she is Haun, and for a brief moment, Haun wonders if Siola has been watching her. But when Siola comments on how pretty Haun is, a warm feeling spreads through her. It's a simple compliment, but it makes her feel good in a way she hasn't felt before. Haun returns the compliment and Siola notices her hair is a bit messy. Haun, unsure of how to explain it, remains silent, but Siola offers to help her fix it. Siola takes charge, deftly styling Haun's hair into a beautiful new look. As Siola finishes, Haun is amazed at how different she looks. It's the first time she's ever had her hair done like this, and she can't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards Siola. She thanks her, and Siola, in her usual nonchalant manner, brushes it off, saying it would be a waste to leave Haun's hair undone when she has such a pretty face. The genuine kindness Siola shows surprises Haun, making her rethink her earlier assumptions about her. The two of them share a moment of quiet camaraderie, and Haun begins to see Siola in a new light. Just as they're talking, Changwook walks by. Haun, eager to greet him, calls out to him, but Siola's instincts kick in. She quickly realizes that Haun may have been the one with Changwook earlier, and her suspicions only grow. Without warning, Siola pulls Haun aside, leading her into a quiet corner. Some other female students see the two of them, but, unsure of what's going on, choose not to interfere. Once they're alone, Siola presses Haun for answers, demanding that she confess what's really going on between her and Changwook. Haun's heart races as she realizes that Siola isn't asking out of simple curiosity. There's something more to this confrontation, and she isn't sure how much she's ready to reveal. Haun stands there, bewildered, wondering what could have triggered Siola's sudden behavior. She can't shake the thought that Siola has figured out what happened between her and Changwook earlier that day. Siola's expression, a mix of intensity and something Haun can't place, makes her feel uneasy. She doesn't know how to respond, the words getting stuck in her throat as she fears the worst. But then Siola unexpectedly apologizes. She explains that she's sorry for lying and trying to get a free ride off their group project, something Haun hadn't even considered before. Haun is taken aback, realizing that this is what Siola has been grappling with. If she had known, Haun thinks, she would have brought up their earlier encounter in the department room. She considers mentioning it now, but decides to play along, reassuring Siola that it's fine since the project turned out well despite everything. Siola, however, seems unsatisfied. She confesses that she's been trying to apologize to Changwook since then, but he hasn't accepted her apology. She mentions that she plans to apologize to the other group members next, though it seems like this is more of a personal burden on Siola than Haun had anticipated. As they speak, a group of senior female students enters the scene. The moment they see Siola pinning Haun to the wall, one of the seniors, Mi-young, immediately confronts them. Haun, recognizing Mi-young, greets her by name, but Siola remains silent, which prompts Mi-young to question why Siola doesn't greet her as her senior. Siola, however, shows no sign of concern or remorse for her actions. She isn't intimidated by Mi-young's authority and, instead, brushes off the question with an icy reply, saying it isn't Mi-young's business if she's arranging Haun or not. Haun, trying to clear up the confusion, quickly speaks up, explaining that the situation isn't what it appears to be. But before she can say much, Siola cuts her off, refusing to explain anything further. Mi-young, now growing more irritated, questions Siola's actions more pointedly, suggesting that she might be acting this way because she's jealous of Haun's newfound attention and beauty. In a surprising twist, Siola snaps back at Mi-young, accusing her of being the one who's actually jealous. Mi-young's temper flares at the retort, and she looks like she's about to slap Siola, but her friends quickly intervene, holding her back to prevent things from escalating further. They all understand that the situation is delicate and they need to keep their composure, especially in front of the younger students. After a tense moment, Mi-young's expression softens slightly, but she still gives Siola a stern warning. She tells her that she'll be watching her closely and will make sure Siola regrets her actions later on. With that, Mi-young and her friends walk off, leaving Siola and Haun standing there in silence. Haun is left speechless by the exchange. She hadn't expected Siola to react so boldly. As they walk away from the confrontation with the seniors, Haun finally gathers enough courage to ask Siola why she acts the way she does toward them. Siola takes a deep breath before explaining. She tells Haun that the seniors have been picking on her ever since they noticed her, and they don't like her because of her personality and the way she carries herself. Siola explains that if Haun had sided with her, those senior students would have likely outcast her just as they have done to Siola. This revelation surprises Haun, but she quickly reassures Siola that she isn't an outcast. In fact, she's so popular that Haun thought that's why people always seem to gather around her. Siola nods in understanding but doesn't seem particularly comforted by Haun's words. She shares that she knows many men are eyeing Haun because of her beauty, but still, Siola has no one she can truly consider a friend. She advises Haun to be careful, warning her that the other girls will likely become wary of her due to her looks, and she doesn't want Haun to end up feeling isolated like she has. Haun is genuinely surprised by Siola's kindness. It's a side of Siola she hadn't expected. The two end up walking home together that day, with Siola opening up more about her experiences. She explains how ever since she started going to school, she has been noticed by others and it's made her feel like she's always on some kind of radar. Yet, despite all of this attention, Siola makes it clear that she isn't going to change who she is. She encourages Haun not to worry about her situation. As they walk, Siola also notices that Haun hasn't worn any makeup but still looks beautiful without it. As they are about to part ways, Siola suddenly asks for Haun's contact number, suggesting that after the exams, the two of them should go shopping together. She promises to help Haun pick clothes and makeup that would really complement her natural beauty. Haun, touched by the gesture, thanks Siola, and they part ways, feeling a new sense of camaraderie. That night, Haun can't stop thinking about how cool and kind Siola is. She begins to understand why things seem to be going well between Siola and Changwook before, and she feels a little guilty. She wonders if she has been the one who came between them, especially now that she's getting closer to Siola. Siola, noticing the distant look on Haun's face, asks her what's wrong. Haun hesitates but lies, saying it's nothing. Unbeknownst to both of them, Changwook has been walking behind them, overhearing their conversation about their plans to go shopping after the exams. He is surprised to see the two girls together, but he remains silent as he processes the unexpected encounter. A few days later, Changwook finds himself alone, feeling frustrated about bombing his midterm exams. He is lost in thought when he hears someone call his name. He turns around and sees Yumin standing there. Her sudden appearance catches him off guard, and Changwook's reaction makes it clear that he isn't exactly thrilled to see her. Yumin, noticing his cold demeanor, asks him what's wrong, wondering why he isn't reacting the way a colleague should when meeting another colleague. Yumin then invites him to grab a drink with her at Shinshin that evening. Changwook, still thinking about his exams, asks her if there is some kind of celebration going on. He has seen the group chat and assumes it's just another social gathering. Without waiting for her reply, he bluntly tells her that he doesn't think it's necessary for someone like him, an outsider, to join in. Hearing this, Yumin doesn't bother trying to convince him further. She simply tells him she will be leaving and walks away. However, Changwook feels conflicted. He knows Shinshin is a popular place for students to unwind after exams, but he isn't sure he fits in. Despite his hesitation, Yumin insists that he still come because she will be there, and that leaves Changwook with no choice but to agree. With that, he makes his way home. Later in the evening, Changwook arrives at Shinshin, and just as he suspected, he is greeted by unfamiliar faces. He immediately knows that he's going to be stuck with people he doesn't really know, but since he's already there, he has no choice but to sit down. As he settles in, Yumin spots him and, with a bright smile, thanks him for coming. She pats his head playfully, which makes Changwook feel awkward. He doesn't know how to respond, but he doesn't want to make a scene, so he just stays quiet and allows it to happen. Just as the situation starts to feel uncomfortable, Haun enters the scene. Changwook's eyes widen in surprise as he spots her walking toward him. She notices him and immediately greets him with a warm smile, catching him off guard. He's unsure what to make of it, but he returns her greeting nonetheless. To his further surprise, Haun sits down beside him, clearly comfortable and relaxed. Yumin, on the other hand, is visibly confused. She watches Haun with a raised eyebrow, unsure of who she is, but sensing that there's something between the two of them. She doesn't know why Haun would greet Changwook so casually, and it piqued her curiosity. Haun greets Yumin with a polite smile, and it takes a moment for Yumin to recognize her. She explains that she didn't recognize Haun at first because she wasn't wearing her glasses. Haun quietly admits that she's lost them, which explains why she hasn't been able to put them on. Changwook, sensing an opportunity to ease the awkwardness, chimes in, mentioning that he's the one who accidentally kicked Haun's glasses the other day and had brought them for her. Haun smiles in gratitude, thanking him for returning them. Changwook, however, begins to feel increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. The tension between him and Haun from earlier still lingers, making him nervous. So he stands up abruptly, claiming he needs some fresh air and walks away to distance himself from the awkwardness. Yumin, not letting it go, follows him. She confronts him about using personal words with Haun, expressing her frustration and confusion over his behavior. Changwook, feeling his patience run thin, tells her that it's none of her business. His response only angers Yumin further. She starts raising her voice, now understanding why others find it hard to be around him. Her anger builds as she considers how to punish him for his actions, but Changwook, maintaining his composure, warns her not to try anything. He tells her he was simply trying to be respectful, but now he has had enough. Back at the table, Haun watches them from a distance, noticing the tension between the two but not hearing their conversation. She can't help but feel uncomfortable, sensing that their relationship is closer than she initially thought. She wonders why they seem to be so familiar with each other when, as far as she knew, they were just colleagues. A few moments later, Yumin approaches Haun. She suggests that next time, Haun should refer to Changwook by his name and avoid using personal terms. Alternatively, she tells her she could call him Appa. Haun is confused and unsure why this is necessary, but, feeling the pressure of the situation, reluctantly agrees to follow Yumin's advice. Satisfied with Haun's response, Yumin leaves to get drinks, leaving Haun to reflect on what just happened. As the drinking session continued, most of the attention in the group remained focused on Yumin. Her presence and carefree vibe seemed to captivate the guys around her. However, it didn't take long before Yumin started to get drunk. Haun, noticing Yumin's condition, kept reminding Changwook not to drink too much so that he wouldn't end up drunk as well. But Changwook soon realized that Haun, too, had been drinking more than she could handle. She kept repeating the same words, and before he could react, Haun grabbed onto his hand, showing clear signs of drunkenness. Changwook became upset, especially since he knew it was someone who had encouraged her to drink too much. He asked one of the guys sitting nearby about Haun's drinking, but they reassured him that she had only had 2 cups. Changwook began to consider that Haun's low alcohol tolerance might be the issue. In response, he decided to give her soft drinks instead and warned her not to drink at places filled with guys in the future. Haun, still somewhat out of it, didn't fully understand what he was trying to convey. As the night went on, Haun began feeling uncomfortably hot. In a haze, she pulled off her jacket, revealing her tight top. The guys around her were stunned, having never noticed her curves before, and their attention shifted to her. Drunken, no longer shy, Haun leaned closer to Changwook, placing his hand on her chest. This bold move shocked everyone in the room, including Changwook, who was left both embarrassed and unsure of how to react. Yumin, noticing what was happening, grew extremely jealous and couldn't tolerate seeing Haun behave that way toward Changwook. She quickly pulled him away from the group and took him to another seat, telling him that he shouldn't be taking care of his underclassmen like that. Instead, she said he should start focusing more on his colleague, subtly hinting at her own feelings for him. Changwook, though, caught on to her intent, and in response, he pointed out that she, too, should stop pushing underclassmen to drink and behave inappropriately. As they exchanged these words, Haun approached Changwook again, this time to ask him to refill her cup, noticing that his was empty. However, as Changwook stood up, Yumin grabbed his other arm, both women vying for his attention. The guys at the table were shocked, realizing that Changwook had somehow found himself at the center of attention from 2 girls. Meanwhile, one of the guys, feeling like Siola was the only one left for him, tried texting her to join them, only to receive a response that she wouldn't be available. Changwook overheard this and felt a sense of relief, pleased by Siola's absence. Taking advantage of the situation, Changwook excused himself, saying he needed to use the bathroom. He managed to slip away from both Yumin and Haun, relieved to have some space. However, as he entered the bathroom, he had an unexpected encounter. To his surprise, Haun was already inside and he had no idea how she had gotten there. She explained that she had come to talk to him, though Changwook couldn't help but wonder why she would choose the men's bathroom to have a conversation. Changwook quickly drags Haun out of the bathroom, realizing that it's likely because she's drunk that she ended up in the men's restroom without noticing. He feels responsible for her and decides to buy her a drink to help clear her head. Haun is grateful for his care, thanking him for looking after her. Changwook, still feeling protective, tells her not to go out drinking like that again. Haun nods, appreciating his concern. As they walk together, Haun remembers that she wanted to talk to Changwook about something important. She asks if they can go somewhere quiet to have a conversation. Changwook is hesitant, thinking that the only quiet place would be a motel, which is too expensive for him. But then he recalls another place that might be more affordable, and they decide to go there instead. When they arrive at the place, both of them feel an awkward tension. The room they're in is dim and silent with no lights on. Changwook tries to call attention to the lack of lighting, but he's told that they would need to use a card to turn the lights on. They both hesitate, unsure of what to do, before deciding to leave and find another place to sit. With the awkwardness lingering between them, Haun tries again, wanting to talk to Changwook about what's been on her mind. But just as she's about to begin, Changwook unexpectedly leans in and kisses her. Haun freezes, surprised by his sudden action. She wasn't expecting this and doesn't know how to react at first. Meanwhile, back at the drinking spot, Yumin grows increasingly restless. She realizes that Changwook has been gone for a while and wonders where he went. As she sits with the underclassmen, her attention is no longer on the drinks or the fun atmosphere. Her mind is entirely on Changwook and she can't shake the feeling that something's off. She tries calling him, but he doesn't pick up, not knowing that he's busy with Haun. The underclassmen encourage her to continue drinking with them, but Yumin isn't interested anymore. She's only focused on finding out what Changwook is doing. The following morning, Changwook wakes up feeling the lingering effects of the previous day. He casually asks Haun if she slept well, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. However, Haeun's response immediately catches him off guard. She claims that she feels like she made a huge mistake the day before, leaving him stunned and uncertain. He's momentarily speechless, trying to process her words. His mind quickly begins to race and his thoughts take a sudden turn. He wonders, with a bit of panic, if he did something wrong, even going so far as to question if he might have thrown himself at a barely conscious, possibly drunk Haun. His heart skips a beat and guilt starts to settle in as he assumes the worst. Realizing that the best course of action is to apologize first, Changwook resolves to take the initiative and clear the air. However, before he can even gather his thoughts, Haun surprises him again. She immediately takes the first step and apologizes, admitting that she couldn't stop her urges and that she might have caused him unnecessary trouble. This unexpected gesture of honesty catches him off guard. Despite his initial worries, he reassures her with a warm smile, telling her that everything is fine. There's no need to worry about it. The awkwardness begins to dissipate, but then Haun shifts the conversation. She mentions that she wanted his advice about Siola, further revealing that her mind is still occupied by the situation involving her friend. Soon after, Changwook and Haun are sitting together at a local cafe. The soft clink of coffee cups and quiet murmurs of other patrons create a calm atmosphere, but the weight of the conversation feels heavy on both of them. As they begin to talk, Changwook learns that Siola, who has always seemed confident and aloof, is actually being outcast by her peers. This revelation hits him harder than expected. He recalls the many times he has seen Siola sitting alone, quietly observing the crowd around her, except for when groups of men would gather near her, showing a different side of her social life. This new information sparks a realization in Changwook. Siola, whom he had assumed to be somewhat popular and untouchable, was actually isolated in her own way, and that fact troubled him. Haun continues to elaborate, explaining that Siola is, at her core, a genuinely good person, someone who doesn't deserve to be treated the way she's been. She shares that the issue began when Siola made a bad impression on a senior female student, which led to a ripple effect, resulting in Siola being intentionally ignored by many of the female students. To make matters worse, Haun reveals that Siola didn't attend the group meeting the day before because the message about the meeting was deliberately sent to everyone except her. The others had excluded Siola, not giving her the chance to attend like everyone else. This revelation makes Changwook feel a deep sense of sympathy for Siola. He hadn't known about the intentional exclusion, and it makes him uncomfortable to think that such things happen so casually. Haun then explains how she took it upon herself to contact Siola separately, letting her know about the meeting and offering her a chance to join. However, Siola's response had been disheartening. Siola declined, stating that she wouldn't be coming. Changwook, hearing this, begins to wonder aloud if Siola was worried about what might happen if Haun chose to side with her. Perhaps Siola feared that by sticking up for her, Haun would get on the wrong side of others or be labeled negatively, especially since the group dynamic was so fragile and divided. A couple of days after their conversation at the cafe, Changwook finds himself standing by the smoking booth, lost in thought. He thinks about how he has been keeping an eye on Siola over the past few days. There's something that bothers him. Siola seems to always be by herself, a lone figure in the midst of the university crowd. Changwook notices that the other girls have made it clear that they dislike Siola, and it's as if the guys, despite their usual interest in her, are also hesitant to approach her. He can't help but feel a little concerned. But then Changwook reasons with himself, remembering that universities are full of people who come and go. Social dynamics constantly shift, and what feels important now might not be as big of a deal later. It's just another part of the experience, he tells himself. Still, something about the situation nags at him, especially when it comes to Siola. Just as he's lost in his thoughts, he hears someone call his name. Before he can fully register what's happening, a bag is suddenly thrown at him. He instinctively ducks, catching the bag just before it hits him. Turning around, he sees Yumin standing there, her arms crossed with an expression that could only mean one thing. She's irritated. She asks him why he didn't come back to look for his bag earlier. Changwook realizes with a jolt that he had mistakenly thought his bag was lost, so he had gone out and bought a new one. Yumin, ever the practical one, scolds him, telling him not to go AWOL like that next time. Changwook, with his usual easygoing demeanor, retorts that he went home first because he was tired. Yumin gives him a nod of acknowledgement but doesn't press the matter further, deciding to leave.